I was never the sort of man who believed in stories, not the kind that had been whispered around campfires or carved into old stones. My life was practical, measured by miles of highway and the rhythm of truck tires on asphalt. But that changed the night I broke down on a back road deep in Arizona with nothing but black desert and endless stars above me. The engine coughed, wheezed, and died. I stepped out, the dry wind carrying the scent of creosote and dust. My phone had no signal, and ahead was nothing but miles of sand and shadows. Behind me, the road stretched into a darker void. Then, I thought it was a mirage, just a silhouette against the horizon. A tall figure of a man, standing perfectly still, framed by the red smear of the moon. He wore something like buckskin, the fringes stirring though the air was still. His head was bowed, as though he were listening to the earth itself. I called out, and my voice cracked the silence like glass. He didn't move or acknowledge me. My skin prickled in the dry cold, and for the first time in years, I felt something I could only call shame. I knew nothing of this land or its history, yet here I was stranded like a trespasser on ground that wasn't mine. When I looked back toward my truck, he was closer, not walking, just closer, as though distance meant nothing to him. His face, when I finally saw it, wasn't what I expected. It wasn't monstrous, but it wasn't right. His features seemed worn, carved from stone. His eyes, two pits that reflected starlight but gave nothing back. His mouth opened slowly, and I swear I could hear a low chant vibrating through the desert floor, as if the land itself carried his voice. I wanted to run, but my legs locked. He raised his hand, and in it was something small, what looked like a carved animal figure, maybe a coyote or a wolf. He pressed it into my palm without a word. The wood was cold, too cold, like it had been buried in ice. The next moment, I was alone again. He was gone. The desert stretched empty around me, silent except for my ragged breathing. My truck, without reason, started when I turned the key. I drove away fast, never once looking in the mirrors. I tried to throw the gift away the next morning. I left it on the motel table and drove off without looking back. Later, though, I found it in my jacket pocket, and a week later, I found it beneath my pillow. No matter where I discarded it, the figure returned. Then the hallucinations began. I stood in vast red canyons beneath a burning sky. The figure was always there, chanting, the words crawling inside my skull, though I couldn't understand them. Around us I heard things moving, paws on stone, claws scraping. Shadows of animals circled, too large to be real, their shapes bending like broken limbs. When I came to, the sound of panting lingered in the room, as though something had just hidden itself behind the door. I put it down to stress, exhaustion, maybe guilt for mocking traditions I didn't understand. But each night the chant grew louder, and each morning I'd find more of the desert's dust on my shoes, though I hadn't left my apartment. One night, I woke to find the man at the foot of my bed. No dream or hallucination. He was there, the moonlight dripping across his shoulders. His mouth opened, but instead of words, an animal's growl poured out. My chest tightened. The air became unbearable and thick with the stink of fur and blood. Behind him, the shadows of beasts crawled across the walls. They had too many legs, too many teeth, and their eyes glowed, not red or yellow, but a dead pale white. They circled closer and closer until I could feel their breath against my skin. The man leaned forward and pressed the carved animal into my chest. Then he whispered a single word I finally understood.
Return.
I woke on the desert floor on the same road. My truck sat dead a few yards away with its headlights flickering weakly. The figure was standing once more on the horizon, waiting, the chant beginning again. My body ached like I'd been dragged across miles of stone. Now I understand. This is no haunting. It's a calling. I was marked the moment he placed that figure in my hand. The land doesn't forgive. The land doesn't forget. The desert spreads in all directions, swallowing roads, swallowing time. I've stopped fighting it. I think I've been walking in circles, though the stars never move. The beasts follow at a distance, patient, waiting for me to collapse. I don't know how many nights I've been here. My watch has stopped, and my skin is burned and split. The figure still presses ice cold against my palm. And I know, when I finally drop, when the last breath rattles out of me, the beasts will close in. I will become the dust that covers this land. My name, my bones, my life will vanish, folded into the chant that never ends. I was never the sort of man who believed in stories, but now I am one. I should have stopped at the edge of the river and listened to the villagers who whispered warnings as I passed their homes, eyes wide and pale. They spoke of a spirit older than the ruins themselves, older than memory, who had walked the lands long before any settlement. They called her the Mother of Shadows, and they said she fed on the living, bending them into the echo of her wrath. I laughed at the superstition. The sun was dying, a swollen orange disk hanging low in the sky, casting long fingers of light over the cracked stones of the ruins. The air smelled of wet earth and decayed wood, thick and clinging to my skin. I walked slowly, my boots crunching against moss-covered stones, listening, not for wildlife, for the slightest movement that would remind me I was not alone. It started with shadows. At first, they were subtle, a wrinkle in the corner of my vision, or a dark smear against the sunlit stone. Then they shifted, curling unnaturally, reaching, stretching toward me. I froze, heart hammering. But it wasn't until I heard her that I understood the danger. A voice layered and ancient, both female and beyond human.
What are you doing here, little one?
I spun around expecting a person, a figure or something tangible, but there wasn't anything. Only the ruins made of cold stones and empty air. The feeling of being watched sank into my bones, and every hair on my body stood up. She emerged from the shadows of the tallest wall, floating as though the ground feared her touch. Her skin was the color of night after a storm, veins glimmering like silver under moonlight. Her eyes, pale, unyielding, endless, pierced my soul. Her hair hung long, dark as ink, flowing as if in a wind that existed only around her. She did not speak or move toward me, yet I felt the weight of her power pressing down, bending the air, twisting reality. I stumbled back. Who? What are you? She tilted her head slowly.
I am the one that remembers the blood before yours, the cries of your ancestors. I am the echo of all those who are broken.
A shiver of terror clawed up my spine. I tried to step away, but the ground shifted. Roots erupted from cracks in the stone, black and slick, wrapping around my ankles. I fell hard, gravel biting my palms. The ruins were no longer ruins. The stones reshaped themselves into a labyrinth, and corridors forming where open space had been. She was closer now, almost touching my face. My ears rang with whispers and hundreds of voices promising pain, revealing guilt I had never committed, sins I had never imagined. My head threatened to split under the weight of it all. Why? Why me? I choked out.
Because you see, because the living always seek the dead.
Her hands extended, long fingers tipped with silver-black nails. The shadows around her bent toward her will, stretching to envelop me. My knees hit the dirt and I clawed at the ground, desperate for escape. But the canyon of stone around me was endless now, the corridors folding impossibly as though the ruins themselves were alive. I saw them then, the faces in the walls, twisted, contorted, eyes hollow, mouths frozen in silent screams. They reached toward me, pleading and threatening at once. She had made them what they were, echoes, trapped between life and death, bound to her will, and I could feel her claiming me, bending my soul, testing my fear. Time lost meaning. Minutes stretched into hours or maybe centuries. Every breath was a struggle, every heartbeat a drum of warning.
Your memories, your blood, your very essence belongs to me. I will take them, and you will walk with me forever.
Panic drove me forward, and I ran blindly through the twisting halls, tripping, falling, bloodied. Every turn led to the same cold stone corridors, the same shadows, the same hollow faces. The walls themselves whispered my name, laughing, mocking. My lungs burned, my vision blurred. I fell to my hands and knees in a courtyard, moonlight spilling over jagged stones. She hovered above me, serene, unstoppable. The whispers crescendoed into a scream that cracked the night itself, and I felt myself breaking, my mind fraying, my body trembling, as she reached out to touch me. And then, for a brief moment, I saw her true form, centuries of anger and vengeance woven into a figure too vast for the earth to hold. Thousands of faces merged with hers, every scream she had ever claimed etched into her flesh. She was the shadow of death walking before time itself. The villagers were right. Some spirits cannot be challenged, some hunger cannot be denied, and some ruins are not empty. They are waiting for you. It was close to midnight, and the desert highway was nothing but blacktop cutting through emptiness. My headlights caught the outline of a man walking along the shoulder. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with long black hair that caught the light in streaks of silver. At first I thought he was hitchhiking, but he didn't raise a hand. He just kept walking, steady, like he had somewhere to be. I should have kept driving, but instead I slowed down, rolled down the window, and called out, "Need a ride?" He turned his head toward me. His face was weathered, hard, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought he might ignore me. Then he opened the passenger door and climbed in without a word. The smell of earth and smoke clung to him. He sat perfectly still, hands folded in his lap with his eyes fixed straight ahead. "Where are you headed?" I asked.
"East,"
he said finally. His voice was low and steady, like stone rolling down a canyon wall.
"as far as you will go."
Something about him put me on edge, but I told myself it was just nerves. Picking up strangers at midnight isn't smart, but I couldn't just leave him out there. We drove in silence. The desert stretched endlessly around us, broken only by the occasional road sign bleached pale by the moon. Every few minutes I'd glance at him, and every time his gaze was locked on the horizon, unblinking. I tried to break the silence. "You from around here?" He didn't answer right away. Then,
"This was all ours once,
his eyes flicked toward me for the first time.
before the highways and fences."
I swallowed, suddenly wishing I hadn't asked. The silence returned, heavier this time. The road seemed to stretch longer than it should, like the miles weren't adding up, and the gas gauge barely moved. Then he spoke again.
"You hear them yet?
"Hear who?"
The ones that walk at night?"
I let out a nervous laugh, trying to shake it off, but my skin prickled. The radio turned to static, no stations, just hissing no matter how I tuned. I turned it off. The man finally turned his head, staring at me. His eyes were so dark they seemed to swallow the light.
"They'll follow now, because you picked me up."
My hands tightened on the wheel. "What are you talking about?" He leaned back, his voice calm, almost casual.
"You'll see."
A shape flashed in the headlights, and I swerved hard, tires screeching. Something dark and low darted across the road, faster than any animal I'd ever seen. My pulse slammed in my throat. What the hell was that? I gasped. The man didn't flinch.
One of them.
I tried to rationalize it. Coyote, stray dog, anything. But in my gut, I knew it wasn't. I pressed harder on the gas. The road seemed endless, the desert pressing in on both sides. My headlights caught shadows that didn't belong to any trees or rocks, shapes keeping pace with us, darting in and out of view.
They don't like me leaving.
My mouth went dry. Who are you? He finally smiled, but it wasn't comforting.
No one you should have picked up.
Something slammed against the side of the car and I swerved, fighting to keep control. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse. Something running behind the car on all fours. Pale skin stretched tight over its body, eyes reflecting white like bone. I floored it. The engine roared, but the shadows kept pace, clawing at the doors and windows. The man sat calm, hands folded as though none of it touched him. "Make them stop," I shouted.
They can't be stopped. They can only be fed.
Another slam, this time from the roof. I could hear claws scraping against the metal, hear the weight shifting as it crawled across. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. The man leaned closer, his voice steady, terrifyingly calm.
You invited me in. That means you chose, and they're hungry.
I looked at him, finally understanding. His face was too still, too perfect, like a mask. His eyes reflected nothing. He wasn't human, not anymore. The roof dented inward, and the windshield cracked. I screamed and swerved wildly, trying to shake whatever was on top. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the man's smile widen.
You'll drive east, as far as you can, and when you can't anymore, they will take what's left.
The car jolted violently as something yanked at the rear bumper. The sound of claws on metal filled the night. My vision blurred with panic. I don't know how long I've been driving. The fuel gauge hasn't moved, and the road never ends. The shadows never fall behind. Beside me, the man sits, patient, waiting. He told me once more, quietly, like a promise.
You shouldn't have stopped.
I was following the trail I'd been warned about. It cut through the canyon like a scar, twisting and narrow with the walls high and jagged, shadows pooling where the sun couldn't reach. People in town whispered about it, called it cursed, said that anyone who wandered there alone at dusk never returned. I didn't believe them, obviously. I was looking for evidence of the old legends, not for trouble. The air changed as I descended into the canyon. It thickened, heavy with the scent of damp stone and sage. Birds stopped calling, and the wind that had rattled the dry brush above the rim vanished. My boots crunched over loose gravel, echoing unnaturally. Somewhere in the walls, I thought I heard a whisper, but didn't see anything when I turned around, just the canyon. I kept walking, and then up ahead of me, I saw a man. He appeared at a bend, tall, with skin the color of shadowed earth, eyes sharp as obsidian. His hair hung long and black, and his clothes were old, traditional, stitched, and worn in a way that made me hesitate. He didn't speak or move toward me, he just watched. I tried to step around him, keeping a safe distance. "I'm not looking for trouble," I said. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the canyon. He tilted his head slightly.
"Trouble doesn't need invitation,"
he said. His words echoed strangely, like they were bouncing off the stone walls a second too late. I felt it then, the sense of being watched from every crevice. Shadows shifted though the sun hadn't moved, and a low hum filled the air, vibrating in my chest. My skin crawled. I shouldn't be here," I said.
"But you are,"
he said simply. I turned sharply, trying to retrace my steps, but the canyon seemed to twist differently. Rocks I'd passed before now blocked the way, and every path looked like the one I had already taken. My breath caught in my throat as I realized I couldn't leave. Then I heard the chanting, soft at first, like distant wind through reeds, but it grew louder, shaped into voices, ancient and guttural. The shadows moved, stretching along the walls, forming shapes taller than any man, thin and bent faces pale and blank. They crept closer, gliding over the stone as though gravity bent for them. The man stepped toward me.
Do not look at them. They remember.
"Remember what?" I whispered, backing up, but my boots hit gravel sliding under me.
The ones before you, the forgotten, the cursed. They hunger for the living to take their place.
Something cold brushed my arm, fast as a strike, and I fell. My hands hit the stone hard. The shadows were closer now, swirling with the windless air. I looked up and saw the man, calm, almost serene as the creatures loomed over me. Their eyes, white, reflective, empty, fixed on my face. I scrambled back. "Why are you helping me?"
Because you haven't seen them yet. Once you see fully, there is no return.
I realized then that he was different from them. The creatures seemed like echoes, twisted remnants of humans or spirits, but he was part of this world, yet untouched, but bound. They circled closer. One raised its head, a face stretched, a mouth too wide, teeth jagged, blackened, and it whispered my name. The sound burned my ears. The man knelt beside me.
Follow my lead. Trust only me.
I did. My body moved with his guidance. Step by careful step, we navigated the canyon, but every turn revealed new horrors. The walls seemed to shift, trapping us. The shadows multiplied, echoing the shapes of things long dead, things I could barely comprehend. My mind strained against the reality bending around me. Time lost meaning as the creatures whispered endlessly, murmuring promises, threats, memories of ancestors I never knew. Finally, the canyon opened to a plateau, bathed in pale moonlight, where the shadows recoiled at the edge. They hovered at the rim, reaching but never crossing. I fell to my knees, trembling, gasping for breath. The man stood over me, and I wanted to ask him who he was, or rather, what he really was. But when I blinked, he was gone. Only the wind moved across the stones, carrying faint echoes of chanting. I stumbled back down the trail, the canyon silent, the shadows gone or hiding. I don't know if I'll ever return to the plateau, but I know one thing. The creatures are patient, and they are always waiting for their next victim.